There are moments in life when the atmosphere around you begins to shift. You can sense something stirring in the spiritual realm. Your spirit feels awakened in a way that you cannot fully explain. This is often the gentle whisper of God preparing you for a new season. Before His blessings arrive, He begins to place divine signs in your path, signs that your breakthrough is closer than you think. Today, I want to share with you 7 divine signs that often appear right before God releases His blessing upon a person's life. These signs are not coincidences. They are heavenly indicators that God is moving behind the scenes, arranging things you cannot see, and preparing you for what He has already planned. A divine restlessness often begins as a quiet stirring deep within the soul, a subtle but undeniable shift that you cannot fully explain. It feels like an inner pull, a sense that you cannot remain where you are spiritually, emotionally, or even physically. This restlessness is not born from fear or anxiety, but from a divine prompting that something greater is drawing near. It interrupts your usual routines, challenges your comfort zones, and awakens you to possibilities you had not considered before. You begin to sense that the season you are in is too small for what God is preparing. The things that once satisfied you suddenly feel incomplete, and the goals that once seemed enough now feel too limited for the growing vision inside you. You start longing for something deeper, something more aligned with your calling, and something that stretches your faith beyond its current boundaries. This stirring often comes at unexpected times, even when life appears stable and predictable, because God does not wait for your circumstances to change before He begins His work in your heart. Instead, He prepares your spirit long before the blessing arrives. There is a holy dissatisfaction that rises within you, urging you to seek Him more earnestly and to open your heart to His direction. You begin questioning your patterns, reassessing your priorities, and feeling compelled to make changes that you cannot fully justify to others. It may feel like impatience, but it is actually anticipation. It may feel like discomfort, but it is actually preparation. God uses this restlessness to loosen your attachment to your current season so that you are ready to step into the next one. It is His way of moving you forward. Even when you are unaware of the doors He is aligning ahead of you. During this time, your sensitivity to His voice becomes sharper. You notice His nudges more clearly. Situations around you begin to feel temporary, as if you are on the edge of transition. Even your prayers change. You begin asking for direction, clarity, and alignment rather than simply asking for comfort. This restlessness becomes a spiritual compass pointing you toward what God has already ordained. It is the first sign that heaven is preparing to shift something in your favor. Relationships, habits, and environments that no longer serve your growth begin to lose their hold. Your spirit grows eager, your faith becomes expectant, and your heart becomes willing to move even before the path is fully revealed. You may feel stretched, pulled, or unsettled, but these feelings are meant to awaken you, not frustrate you. They are divine signals that the ground beneath you is shifting, and that God is positioning you for a blessing that requires a new level of readiness. The restlessness is not random. It is purposeful, intentional, and deeply spiritual. It signals that God is drawing you out of old patterns and leading you toward a season that carries more responsibility, more favor, and more spiritual maturity. When God is preparing to release a new blessing into your life, one of the clearest signs is the quiet closing of old doors. These moments rarely feel comfortable because endings are often wrapped in confusion, disappointment, or unexpected change. Yet in the spiritual realm, these closures are purposeful. God does not shut a door to punish you. He shuts a door to protect you and reposition you. There are seasons when opportunities that once seemed promising suddenly fade, relationships that felt permanent begin to drift, and paths you relied on begin to narrow. It may feel like loss, but in reality, it is divine redirection. God knows when something in your life has served its purpose, and He gently removes it so that you are not held back from what He is preparing ahead. Many times we try to hold on to what God is trying to move us away from. We struggle to understand why something ended or why a situation changed without warning. But heaven sees what we cannot see. God sees the conversations behind closed doors, the intentions of hearts, the unseen dangers, and the limitations of old opportunities. When He closes a door, He is saying, "This chapter can no longer support your calling. There is more for you." These endings may come gradually, like a slow disconnect where your spirit no longer feels at peace, or they may come suddenly, catching you off guard. But whether slow or sudden, the closure is intentional. God ensures that anything not aligned with your next season begins to lose its grip on your life. You may notice that things that once brought you joy no longer resonate. Passions shift, desires fade. Conversations that once energized you now feel empty. Doors that once opened easily now require force, and even when you try to push them, they simply do not move. This is God's mercy in action. He prevents you from walking into places that would limit your growth or delay your destiny. When God closes a door, He also begins to separate you from people who cannot walk with you into the next level. Not everyone is assigned to every season of your life. Some people were meant to be lessons, not lifelong companions. Some opportunities were meant to train you, not sustain you. Some environments were meant to shape you, not hold you. These closures are signs that God is transitioning you from where you were to where you are meant to go. During this season, you may feel tempted to reopen what God has shut. Nostalgia pulls at you. Familiarity calls your name. But every time you try to go back, you feel a spiritual resistance, a lack of peace, a sense that you are forcing something that no longer fits. This is because the grace for that season has lifted. God often closes doors before opening new ones because He wants you to walk into your next blessing with clarity, not confusion, and with readiness, not resistance. The closed door is not rejection, it is redirection. It is the divine indication that the old chapter has completed its assignment and a new one is already being written for your life. When a major blessing is drawing near, it is common to experience a sudden increase in spiritual warfare. This intensity is not a sign that you are failing or that God is distant. It is evidence that the spiritual atmosphere around you is shifting. The enemy senses what you cannot yet see, and he recognizes that something powerful is being prepared for your life. When blessings approach, battles intensify. The pressure you feel is not accidental. It is strategic. The enemy fights hardest when he knows you are nearing a breakthrough that will elevate your faith, expand your influence, and strengthen your walk with God. Suddenly, ordinary challenges feel heavier than usual. Small frustrations become magnified. Unexpected attacks arise in areas where you once felt secure. You may face emotional battles that seem unexplainable, moments of discouragement that attempt to drain your hope, or spiritual dryness that tries to silence your prayer life. This is because the enemy wants to exhaust you before you reach what God has prepared. In these moments, your mind becomes a battlefield. Doubt tries to whisper that nothing will change. Fear attempts to convince you that you are unworthy of blessing. Old insecurities rise to the surface, reminding you of past failures. The enemy uses these tactics to distract you, hoping that you will retreat right at the edge of victory. But the increase in warfare is actually a sign that the blessing is closer than it has ever been. The enemy does not waste energy fighting someone who is going nowhere. He fights those who are about to step into something greater. During this season, you may also notice unexpected conflicts in relationships. People may misunderstand your intentions, react emotionally, or distance themselves without clear reasons. These relational tensions are not random. They are attempts to disturb your peace, disrupt your focus, and weaken your spiritual strength. The enemy knows that division creates vulnerability, so he pushes to create confusion where unity once existed. But even this turmoil is under the sovereignty of God. Nothing that touches your life escapes His awareness. And even the battles you face become tools for strengthening your spirit. You may find that temptation becomes stronger than usual. Old habits or weaknesses you thought you had overcome suddenly rise again. The enemy wants to lure you into old patterns so you cannot receive new blessings. He tries to distract you with the past so you miss the opportunities of the future. Yet this intensified temptation is also proof of the spiritual elevation that is coming. The enemy targets areas where your blessing will bring growth, impact, and influence. In the midst of these pressures, God is training your spiritual endurance. He is teaching your hands for war and your fingers for battle, not to defeat you but to prepare you. Breakthrough requires strength, and warfare produces that strength. Your faith grows deeper, your prayers grow stronger, and your dependence on God becomes more genuine. The enemy may attempt to overwhelm you, but every attack is building resilience in you that will support the blessing you are about to receive. When God is preparing to elevate your life, one of the most significant signs is the quiet, steady purification of your heart. This process is often subtle, yet deeply transformative. You begin to notice that the Holy Spirit gently brings certain attitudes, motives, and hidden areas of your life into the light. Things you once overlooked suddenly feel heavy on your conscience. Words you used to speak casually now make you pause. Thoughts you once entertained without concern now feel out of place. This is not condemnation, it is refinement. God is preparing you internally for what He intends to release externally. There are blessings that require a certain level of maturity, humility, and spiritual integrity, and God knows that if the heart is not ready, the blessing can become a burden. So before He elevates you, He purifies the foundation within you. You may feel Him nudging you to let go of pride, bitterness, jealousy, impatience, or old wounds you've carried for years. You begin to notice how quickly you are convicted when your attitude shifts in the wrong direction. Even small compromises feel heavier than they once did. This is evidence that God is shaping your inner character so that you can handle the responsibility and influence that comes with greater blessing. During this season, God often highlights relationships or habits that no longer align with who you are becoming. You may feel compelled to pull away from conversations that drain your spirit or environments that dim your faith. You may lose the appetite for things you once enjoyed because God is cleansing your desires and preparing new priorities within you. It is not that those things were always sinful, but they are no longer suitable for the level God is calling you to. Purification is about alignment, aligning your heart with God's heart so that you can receive without stumbling. You may also feel a deep desire to reconcile with others, to forgive where you once resisted, or to release burdens you held for too long. God often brings unresolved issues to the surface during this refining season because He wants nothing in your spirit to interfere with the blessing He is preparing. A pure heart carries blessing differently. It walks with discernment instead of pride, with gratitude instead of entitlement, with humility instead of self-reliance. God shapes this purity so the blessing will lift you, not corrupt you. Inner purification can also bring emotional sensitivity. Tears come easily. Worship feels deeper. Prayer becomes more personal. You may feel broken in ways you don't fully understand, but that brokenness is holy. It is the kind of breaking that prepares the soil for new growth. God softens your heart so you can hear Him more clearly, love more sincerely, and walk more faithfully. In this season, God removes what cannot support the next level of your calling. He detoxes your spirit from negativity, doubt, fear, and harmful patterns that would weaken your blessing. He stretches your patience, strengthens your character, and aligns your motives with His purpose. Purification is not punishment, it is preparation for a blessing that requires a clean, willing, and surrendered heart. When God is getting ready to shift your season, one of the unmistakable signs is a deep, unexplainable hunger for prayer rising within you. It is not forced, and it is not something you manufacture out of discipline alone. It is a spiritual pull, a divine drawing where your heart longs for the presence of God more than usual. You may find yourself waking up earlier than normal, feeling compelled to pray even when you didn't plan to. Your spirit may suddenly grow restless until you kneel before God. This hunger is supernatural, placed within you by the Holy Spirit, because God always prepares your spirit before He releases His blessing into your life. In these moments, prayer stops feeling like a duty and becomes your lifeline. You find comfort in talking to God about things you once tried to handle on your own. Words flow more easily. Your heart opens more freely. Your spirit becomes tender and sensitive to His whisper. It is as if God is inviting you into a deeper level of intimacy because what He is about to release requires greater spiritual alignment. Blessings are not only received with open hands, they are received with an open heart, and prayer is what opens that heart. During this season, you might also notice that distractions lose their power. The things that used to steal your time, noise, unnecessary conversations, entertainment, worldly pull, suddenly feel empty. Something inside you wants more than temporary satisfaction. You crave the stillness where you can feel God's presence. You long for moments of silence where your spirit can breathe and your mind can be renewed. This shift is God preparing your spiritual sensitivity so you can discern His guidance clearly when the blessing arrives. Your prayers may become more focused, more honest, more vulnerable. You begin praying not just for things, but for direction, wisdom, purity, and clarity. You find yourself saying, Lord, what do you want for my life? What is your will? Where are you leading me? This shift in prayer is significant because it shows that your heart is aligning with His purpose. Before God blesses you, He brings you into deeper communion so that your spirit can hold what your hands are about to receive. There is also a new level of awareness that develops in this season. You begin to sense spiritual things more strongly. You feel the difference between God's peace and God's warning. You recognize when something is aligned with His will and when something is not. You become more aware of His presence during the day. While working, walking, resting, or thinking, This awareness is a sign that God is strengthening your spiritual discernment, because every new blessing requires the ability to hear Him clearly. This hunger for prayer is not just preparation, it is empowerment. God is fortifying your inner strength, building your spiritual endurance, and renewing your mind so you can walk confidently into the next chapter. The deeper you go in prayer, the stronger your faith becomes. The stronger your faith becomes, the more prepared you are for the blessing that is on its way. This divine hunger is the Spirit's way of drawing you closer so that nothing in the next season catches you unprepared. When God is preparing to move you into a new season, one of the clearest signs is the way He begins sending repeated confirmations through Scripture, people, and circumstances. These confirmations are not coincidences. They are divine signals meant to guide your steps and strengthen your faith. You may notice that a particular Bible verse keeps appearing in your reading, in sermons, in conversations, or even on social media. It speaks directly to your situation, almost as if God is underlining it again and again. This repetition is intentional. God knows that when you are close to a breakthrough, doubt tries to rise, uncertainty tries to cloud your thoughts, and fear tries to interfere. So He sends confirmations to reassure you that you are walking in the right direction. Sometimes the confirmation comes through a person who has no idea what you are praying about. They say something that directly answers a question you have been struggling with in your heart. Other times, someone shares a testimony that mirrors your own situation, reminding you that God is capable of doing the impossible. A conversation, a prayer from a friend, or even a passing comment can feel like a message straight from heaven. These moments are God's way of saying, I am speaking, pay attention. I am preparing the way. Circumstances can also carry divine confirmation. Doors open unexpectedly. Resources appear at the right moment. Solutions emerge without effort, or opportunities align perfectly without your manipulation. These alignments are not accidental. They are orchestrated. God arranges situations so precisely that you begin to realize you are not walking into the next season alone. He is guiding you step by step, clearing obstacles, and arranging details so the blessing reaches you in His timing. This season of confirmation often comes with heightened spiritual awareness. You become more sensitive to nudges, more alert to signs, and more attentive to the ways God is speaking. What once felt ordinary now feels significant. Small moments begin to carry meaning. You notice patterns, recurring themes, and divine echoes. God speaks in a way that resonates in your spirit, not just your mind. You feel a supernatural certainty that cannot be explained logically, but cannot be ignored either. Sometimes, confirmation shows up through closed doors as well. A rejection, a delay, or a sudden halt in something you were pursuing becomes a protective message from God. It is His way of redirecting you without harming you. When you look back later, you realize that the no was actually a necessary part of the journey. The confirmation was not just in open doors, but also in the doors that stayed shut. There are also moments when God confirms through inner peace. A deep assurance settles in your spirit even when circumstances are uncertain. That peace becomes your compass. Other times, He confirms through conviction, making you uneasy about paths that are not aligned with His plan. These inner movements are as important as outward signs, because God speaks both externally and internally to ensure that your heart stays aligned with His will. All these confirmations, whether through Scripture, people, circumstances, peace, or conviction, are God's way of preparing you for the blessing ahead. They help you recognize His voice, trust His plan, and walk with confidence as the next chapter unfolds. One of the most profound signs that God is preparing to release a blessing over your life is the presence of supernatural peace in the midst of confusion, uncertainty, or even chaos. This peace does not depend on circumstances, logic, or visible progress. It comes from a realm deeper than understanding. It settles in your spirit quietly, like a gentle whisper that reassures you even when your surroundings give you no reason to feel calm. You may still have unanswered questions, unresolved situations, and unclear direction. Yet there is a stillness inside you that cannot be shaken. This peace is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of God. It is His way of confirming that He is in control, that His timing is perfect, and that His plans are already unfolding behind the scenes. This peace often appears right after a storm or during a season when you would normally feel overwhelmed. People may look at your situation and wonder how you are holding yourself together. But you know within your heart that something divine is at work. This peace guards your thoughts from spiraling into fear, anxiety, or desperation. It becomes a shield around your mind, preventing negative voices from invading your spirit. Even when your circumstances are loud, God's peace becomes louder within you. It gently reminds you that His hand is on your life and that He will not let you fall. During this time, your reactions begin to change. Things that used to trigger you no longer disturb you in the same way. Situations that once caused you to panic now push you to pray. You start responding with wisdom instead of impulse, patience instead of frustration, and trust instead of fear. This shift is not because you have become stronger on your own, but because God is strengthening you from the inside out. He is preparing your heart to carry the blessing with stability and maturity. Peace becomes the evidence that you are being spiritually fortified. This peace also creates clarity. When you are no longer consumed by anxiety, you begin to hear God's voice more clearly. His guidance becomes easier to discern. Thoughts that once felt tangled now begin to align. You feel directed, even if you do not know every step. You sense when to move, when to wait, and when to release things that are not meant for you. Peace functions as a divine compass, pointing your spirit toward the path that God has prepared. It shows you where God's hand is and where it is not. You may also notice that this peace brings a deep sense of trust. You start believing, not because everything makes sense, but because you know who is leading you. You trust the process, even when progress is not visible. You trust God's timing, even when delays feel long. You trust His wisdom, even when the journey feels unfamiliar. This trust is the fruit of peace, and it prepares you to receive the blessing with the right posture of heart. Supernatural peace is one of the clearest indicators that heaven is working on your behalf. It steadies you, it aligns you, it strengthens you, and it prepares you for what God is about to release into your life. When God is about to release a new blessing into your life, you often begin to notice unexpected opportunities and sudden clarity appearing at just the right moments. These openings may come in ways that seem ordinary at first, but as you look closer, you realize they are divinely orchestrated. A door opens where you thought none existed, a solution arises when all options seemed exhausted, or a chance encounter presents guidance or provision that perfectly aligns with your need. These moments feel almost too precise to be coincidental, and that is because they are not. God arranges circumstances in ways that humans cannot anticipate. He positions people, resources, and timing so that when the blessing arrives, everything is aligned to receive it fully. This unfolding of opportunity often comes gradually, with small confirmations along the way. You may notice that certain projects gain momentum unexpectedly, that key relationships develop in alignment with your purpose, or that insight comes to you at exactly the moment you need it. God is giving you glimpses of the next season before it fully arrives. He prepares the soil before planting the seed, and these opportunities are signs that the ground is being made fertile for what is coming. Sometimes these openings require discernment. Not every door that appears is meant to be entered. God gives wisdom to recognize which opportunities are aligned with His will and which are distractions. This clarity grows as your spirit becomes attuned to His voice and as you learn to follow His guidance faithfully. At the same time, God often brings insight and understanding that illuminates previously confusing situations. You may suddenly perceive solutions to problems that had seemed unsolvable, or you may understand lessons from past experiences that had previously puzzled you. This clarity is a divine gift, a form of revelation that prepares your heart and mind to receive the blessing without hesitation or doubt. Your ability to see with spiritual insight increases, and your steps begin to align with His purposes more naturally. The timing of these insights is never random. They appear exactly when you need them to navigate the path that God has prepared, confirming that He is actively working behind the scenes. Opportunities may also appear through people who are divinely placed in your life. Mentors, supporters, or even strangers may appear with guidance, encouragement, or resources at the perfect moment. These connections often arrive unexpectedly, but they are arranged by God to ensure that you have what you need for the next phase of your journey. His hand is in the details, orchestrating encounters and circumstances that support your growth and readiness for the blessing. Even when the way forward seems uncertain, these signs of clarity and opportunity provide assurance that God is moving. You begin to notice patterns, coincidences that are too consistent to be random, and doors opening that align perfectly with your prayers. This process is both preparation and confirmation. It strengthens your faith, builds your confidence, and encourages you to step forward without fear. The opportunities and insights that appear at these moments are evidence that God is already at work, arranging everything necessary so that when the blessing arrives, you are ready to receive it fully, with clarity, confidence, and alignment.